Mobile power connections. Normally, you'd want to do a direct battery connection with your positive and your ground fused.
Don't use chassis ground.
Well,
Full of noise.
if you have to, but if you do, it should be the chassis ground at the battery. Short, heavy gauge wire. The longer it is, the heavier gauge you should use because. Oh, what did I say? Oh, excuse me. Yes, the longer it is, the heavier gauge wire you should use to prevent voltage drop. I guess a mobile transmitting 50 watts is probably going to draw 12, 15 amps, something like that. Normally, the cable you get with a mobile transceiver already has fuses in the power cable that are at the battery end, fused on both the positive and negative side in case you're shorting something out, depending on how you had to route the power lead. The auxiliary power connector, which we used to call cigarette lighters, but now it's officially an auxiliary power connector because you're not supposed to be smoking in the car, I guess.
So you can have electronic things to be had. No matter plug in.
But those aren't recommended. For one thing, they probably don't handle 15 amps, and it's not a very good connection either way. You may burn up the wiring. Which of the following direct fused power connections would be the best for a 100-watt HF mobile installation?
Keep the battery.
10 gauge?
Most cases have work. I've got 8 gauge.
What kind of power poles do you use?
I've got the 45 amp.
Oh, the 45s. Okay. What if I should do? Well, I've already got some 30s in line. I got some.
The only problem is here where you put in the fuses, all those you buy is 10 gauge.
Yeah.
I quit using fuses when I found that you can get some real nice inline circuit breakers. And they work very well.
Okay.
And it's nice because you can just hit the button and turn them off if you want to.
On my solar system, I very much for Silver Marines block of fuses. And they talked out nice.
Why should DC power for a 100-watt HF transceiver not be supplied by a vehicle's auxiliary power socket?
B.
Yeah, Bobby.
It'll let the smoke out of the socket.
Yeah, it says it may be inadequate. I would almost guarantee it's inadequate. Noise sources in a mobile installation, a lot of them. The charging system for the battery. In an old car where it was a mechanical system that made connections and kind of a pulse width modulation charger.
The generator generated less noise than an alternator, but points generated more noise than electronic.
Right. But even in the modern ones, the charging system generates noise. Fuel pumps turning off and on because they'll pump up to a certain pressure and turn off until the pressure drops and turn back on. So that's another impulse noise source. The vehicle computer, I mean, it's a computer, lots of high frequency stuff going on. So they're not necessarily designed to be compatible with your radio. Which of the following may cause receive interference in a radio installed in a vehicle?
All the above and more.
Just about everything. Antennas for mobile. Most mobile antennas are compromised because they tend to be short relative to the wavelength, particularly if you're doing HF mobile. It's not as much of a problem if you're doing VHF or UHF. Because of the fact that they're shortened, they're going to be less efficient. Just like your rubber ducky on a handy-talkie is not very efficient, but it doesn't get in the way of things. Because of the shortened antenna, they're going to have a narrower bandwidth than a full-length antenna. So that's one of the other issues is the bandwidth. Which of the following most limits an HF mobile installation?
Does it say what food is stored in?
What is one disadvantage of using a shortened mobile antenna as opposed to a full-size antenna?
Narrow bandwidth.
Narrower bandwidth. Capacitance hats. One way to increase the electrical length of a shortened resonant antenna is with a capacitance hat, which are typically perpendicular elements put at the end of an antenna element. Sometimes it's looks like radial, sometimes it's a circular element like a hat. This isn't exactly
That's hats on.
could be a mobile because I saw one at Hampcation like this. But these are capacitance hats out here on the ends. And I think I now understand how they work. Because since it's shortened, you're trying to operate at a lower frequency than it's resonant at, it's going to appear inductive, right?
Sure.
So when you add capacitance to it, you counteract that, make it appear longer, right?
Why not?
That's what I'm going to go with. What is the purpose of a capacitance hat on a mobile antenna? See. To electrically lengthen it. Corona balls. I've never actually seen one of these in practice. Have you?
I've seen them, but I've never seen them working.
Try them at 200 knots in icy clouds.
You can see them working, like.
Yes.
Okay, it's a way to prevent high RF voltage discharges at the end of a shortened antenna because that's like a point source and it's very high energy density. So if you put a ball on the end of it, it spreads the energy around, so the density is a lot less. So it's less likely to create.
So they have those on commercial broadcast towers, especially the big AM towers.
Yeah, well, and they're doing a little more power than we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Just a couple thousand watts.
Oh, maybe 100.
Yeah.
So I found some pictures of the Corona ball. And I guess this is a real one over here on the right.
Those seconds?
No, this is just Corona. What's the purpose of a Corona ball on an HF mobile antenna?
RF discharge. Reduce RF.
Right.
It would, if C said to strike your eye, then it might fit.
Well, actually, it does that too, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's less chance of poking something. Solar cells. They used to power up mobile or portable operations, or in fact, even base stations as a power backup to charge your batteries. They operate by what's called photovoltaic conversion, which is converting solar energy directly into electrical energy. They're typically half a volt per cell if it's fully illuminated and clean, doesn't have dust on it. And we connect them up in a combination of series and parallel arrangement of cells in order to get the voltage that we want out of it. So if you want to say 12 volts out, you'd have to have 24 of them in series. And then in order to increase the current, then you'd have more parallel groups of 24.
Or bird residue on the cells.
Right. Yeah.
They love soaring over the cells.
Yeah. They're 20% efficient when they're brand new and clean and pointed at the sun perpendicular. And then they go down from there. What's the approximate open circuit voltage from a fully illuminated silicon photovoltaic cell?
Billy,
Half a volt. And that's open circuit voltage. I'm not sure what they drop to when they're supplying current.
they dropped a couple of times.
In what configuration are the individual cells in a solar panel connected together?
Series parallel.
Right. Solar charging, in order to charge, they use a lot to charge lead acid storage batteries or the newer lithium iron phosphates to use as a backup voltage source. So you use panels of them connected together through a charge controller to charge up the storage batteries. And you need to have a series diode, either part of the charge controller or just if you're doing it directly between the cells and the battery. So when the output of the cell becomes lower than the voltage on the battery, it doesn't backflow and discharge the batteries.
I've never seen a 12 volt, nominal 12 volt panel without a diode.
So the purpose of the diode is to prevent self-discharge of the battery back through the panel. Why should a series diode be connected between a solar panel and a storage battery being charged by the panel?
Billy,
Okay. Wind power, converting wind energy to electrical energy. And you can power up a station the same way and charge storage batteries. It's kind of like the solar cell. They don't produce output all the time. Obviously, the wind's not blowing, you don't get anything out of it. Just like when the sun's not shining, you don't get anything out of your solar cell. They require a similar large array of storage batteries, depending on how much backup power you're looking for. And they only charge when there's enough wind to turn the generator fast enough to output high enough voltage to charge the battery.
the power is logarithmic.
I got 200 amp batteries on my trailer. And I love the fact I push the generator button, let it run for about a half hour, and it's completely charged them when they've been run down.
Okay. What precautions should be taken when connecting a solar panel to a lithium iron phosphate battery?
Unless they have a charge controller.
Right. They're a little more picky than a lead acid battery.
They can put,
And
Yeah.
don't let the lithium battery get wet with salt water. They catch fire,
Lithium does not like water.
even less salt water.
I'll have to find that next time.
Okay, we're halfway.